Star Trek Picard is the story of your creepy uncle trying to get as much trim as possible from one of his old colleagues' daughter before he croaks of old age. Star Trek Picard is the story of an old man chilling with some ninja nuns while some Mexicans have their El Planeta destroyed. I'm not shitting you, these are ninja nuns. Star Trek Picard is about a 79-year-old actor trying to stay relevant. No, that's still not it. Star Trek Picard is the story of an actor trying to falsely project his own personality through the identity of an already established character. In other words, he's not playing Picard, he's playing himself. Picard is arguably the most important character of Stewart's career. Now sure, he also played Charles Xavier, but Picard was really the key to his success. Without the role of Picard, he would have probably never played Xavier. He probably would have never even gotten to the point of success Star Trek had to offer him. Back in the late 80s and early 90s, Star Trek The Next Generation averaged at 10 million views an episode, and by the last 3 seasons, the viewership numbers were averaged at around 13 million an episode. This show got the attention of a substantial amount of individuals. Most importantly for Stewart, it got the attention of Bryan Singer and the executives at 20th Century Fox. Even though I have many problems with Star Trek Picard as a whole, this video will focus on Picard's character and how all of these writers and executives fail to see what is so obvious, so crucial to such an easy role to grasp. I will also give you examples from TNG to back up my claims. The original source material is key to understanding Picard, due to that being where his character was created and defined he was. I want to also acknowledge that 20 years has gone by since we saw Picard in Star Trek Nemesis. This will most likely be the first thing people attempt to use as a valid rebuttal to my argument. Keyword try. I am aware of the time jump and that Picard has aged significantly, but this does not mean he is a completely different individual. This does not mean he is a changed man. Yes, times change and most people grow more wise and mellow with age, but your character does not change to where it is nearly unrecognizable with the passage of time. We saw Picard's journey for 7 years in real time on TNG. Picard experienced traumatic events regularly within the show, and the core elements of his character always remained. I guess how one would truly define Picard is important to know before we continue. I will very briefly list strong traits of his character, and then I will compare Picard to how he was as a new character at the beginning of TNG, and how he developed and grew over the course of the show.
I should have done this a long time ago.
The compare and contrasting of the two characters will commence right after, and yes, I said characters. When I think of Picard, these are normally the first words that come to mind. Refined, authoritative, self-assured, stern, diplomatic, and bald. Picard knows this is a military and treats everyone around him as his personal responsibility. Picard is also someone who is quite shut as an individual, not having the rest of his crew close.
Tell me, does Jean-Luc come here often?
Not often. The captain is a very private man.
You must understand, the captain is a very private man.
A captain does not reveal his personal feelings to his crew.
This is likely the captain not wanting them to think of him as a pal. Picard would rather paint himself as pure authority and nothing more. He is someone who is fascinated by history and literature. Picard is also someone who disliked children.
I'm not a family man, Riker, and yet Starfleet has given me a ship with children aboard. Yes, sir. And I don't feel comfortable with children.
This led into an interesting dialogue between him and Counselor Troi on the subject. Picard reveals that he doesn't like children because they don't respond to him.
For some reason, they just don't seem to respond to me.
I see.
Counselor Troi asks if Picard had ever had friends as a child. Picard stumbles around with the question, choosing not to answer it, due to the response most likely being no. He ultimately came to the realization that he gave his childhood away so that he may become a Starfleet officer.
Ever since I was a child, I've always known exactly what I wanted to do, be a member of Starfleet. My entire youth was spent in the pursuit of that goal. In fact, probably skipped my childhood altogether.
You see, this is a key moment in understanding Picard. The man explains how much he has sacrificed to be in his current position. On one hand, it's quite noble, and on the other hand, it's kind of a tragedy. This one conversation shows the dedication and principles that this man holds. One of the last things I want to point out about Picard is that he is an individual who demands respect. Everything from his orders, his decisions, his responses, his posture, his brisk walk, and even his reliance and trust in the right individuals screams the ultimate authority. This is the most defining character trait of Jean-Luc Picard. This man does not scream authority, but I'll get into that in just a moment. Now, at the beginning of TNG, he was a new captain to the Enterprise and her crew. He was a little more quick to action and, as I said earlier, he fucking hated kids. Throughout the whole series, he was never really seen much hanging out with his subordinates, except for Guinan, Dr. Crusher, and Data. Guinan was more of an advisor to Picard, and also a sparring mate in fencing. Data was the person that he taught the human condition to, and he had a morning cup of tea with Dr. Crusher. At the end of the series, he was a lot more comfortable around children due to the nearly life-ending situation in the episode Disaster, and when he became real close to Jonah and suddenly human. Not to mention he had his own family in the span of 25 minutes. Also by the end, he realized his error in leadership and saw that he had a lot to gain from having more than just a professional relationship with his colleagues. Picard also became more relaxed around his crew. He led them into life-threatening circumstances on a consistent basis. You're bound to know your crew in and out under those types of circumstances. But enough of this. Let's get to the show. Example 1. Sticking to your guns. Very early on in the Star Trek Picard series, we get one true first glimpse at how different these two men truly are. The difference could be subtle to a few, but I assure you it's there. In the first episode, we have this journalist lady trot on down to Packard's crib for an interview. Now, so that we're all on the same page, there was a supernova that destroyed Romulus. Packard stepped down from Starfleet due to them not helping the Romulans escape the aforementioned disaster. He went and led an entire fleet of volunteers to help save as much Romulans as possible before the supernova could destroy the planet. Interesting fact, this is the supernova that Ambassador Spock tried to stop in Star Trek 2009.
A star went supernova. Promised the Romulans that I would save their planet.
Also, at some point, Utopia Planitia was attacked by a bunch of androids, so now androids, which are now called synthetics, are outlawed because that totally sounds like the first thing an intelligent and evolved society would do. Make an uncalculated knee-jerk decision. You know, that kind of sounds like our society. Not this enlightened society of the 24th century. I'll get to that subject later. Now, I will not be attacking Picard's decisions or positions yet. I'm just attacking his behavior during the interview. Now, she unknowingly to Packard intends on making this a gotcha interview. Does the intelligent and enlightened Picard fall for this very obvious ploy to make him lose his cool to the entire world?
Yes, he does.
Now, what should have been a big red flag to Packard is how she starts asking questions that they didn't agree to.
I thought we were here to talk about the supernova.
He gets all uncomfortable and squeamish. Then Genius here starts yelling and making a scene, calling Starfleet out in front of everyone, and manages to make himself out to be an absolute child. Oh wait, I'm not surprised at all. This isn't Picard, this is Packard we're talking about. Stupid me. How this incessant child acts is not how a former Starfleet officer should act. In Picard's prime, he was interrogated by a former admiral who was trying to convince other admirals in a public trial that he was a traitor to the Federation. He didn't even fucking wince. I look at this guy, and he's rubbing his hands, he's fidgeting, he's stuttering around. Picard would have acted calm under these conditions. Kinda like how he acts under pressure whenever his entire crew and ship are threatened in like almost every episode of TNG. Again, remember the drumhead? Remember how the ex-admiral tried to smear his command and loyalty? Remember how tense it was for you, the audience? I mean, imagine how Picard felt. His entire career was on the line. Everything he had worked for his entire life could have ended in just a few moments. Picard just kept his poker face and reminded the entire room what the Federation stood for. That falling into this witch hunt was something her own father warned people about. It was genius performed under strenuous conditions, and Picard came through. Now let's see how Packard handles scrutiny under questioning, shall we?
And I was not prepared to stand by and be a spectator.
This is not me. I'm fighting for my life.
And you, my dear, you have no idea what Dunkirk is, right?
Y'all killing me with this.
You're a stranger to war. You just wave your hand and it all goes away. We're done here.
I gave y'all 30 years of my
first time any man's freedom is trodden on, we're all damaged.
How dare you! You who consort with Romulans, invoke my father's name to support your traitorous arguments. It is an offense to everything I hold dear.
Again, I am not attacking what Picard was talking about in the interview. At least not right now. I'm commenting on his actions. You don't change your nature, your character, so drastically like this. Especially someone who has handled many different levels of stress. Stress like being tortured for days. Oh yeah, that happened.
There are 4 lights.
There are 5 lights. How many do you see now?
You are 6 years old. Weak and helpless.
Example 2. Taking shit like a bitch. Now, as I said, one of the most important parts of Picard's character is taking the lead. Whether or not he's a little kid, or on an Indiana Jones adventure with some money-loving broad, he's always taking the situation by the throat and doing what is necessary. Now, when I'm watching Packard, I see a common thread of behavior from him, this common thread being him taking shit from people that should not be giving it to him. I know this is Packard and all, but they treat this man as if he was Picard, so that means they verbally abuse him for his judgment, even though they are perfectly aware of his Starfleet record. Like seriously, shut the fuck up and do your jobs. As much as I hate this spineless piece of shit, I think the writers make him out to be more competent than these people would like to admit. Okay, I'm done complimenting Packard. The worst part isn't even that shit is being unjustly thrown at him. It's the fact that he does almost nothing to really defend himself. This man was a Starfleet captain. Picard is a natural-born leader, and most natural-born leaders don't take shit from anyone unless they are a higher chain of command than them. So if you're just some random citizen, or even a friend, if you just start tearing into someone like this, expect to instantly be shot down. Picard would not just ignore it, he would let it be known that he didn't appreciate this. Your image as a leader is vital, and if you have people constantly shouting you down on all of your decisions, then you need to whip them into shape and let them know that this is your mission and that they are just along for the ride. And for some of these people, they're coming along on the ride for free. I'm looking at you, Raffi. Seriously, look at her. She just completely harasses him.
You have some goddamn nerve. Sitting back in your very fine chateau. Are you out of your goddamn mind? That you even suggest it makes me seriously question your mental state.
And she's his friend. Also, other people think it's fun to ride Packard's ass. People like his Mexican maid. Romulan maid.
When I hear you say such a stupid idea...
Can't go without us.
Idiot! He cannot go at all. He is only safe here. Of course, if it's important to Jean-Luc Picard, it must be important to the whole galaxy.
Romulans are constantly compared to Mexicans in this show because it's actually about Trump's America. I could see the similarities. How original, guys. Commentary on Donald Trump. Jesus, I've never seen this done before. You people are so clever. Alright, let's get back on point. Since we're all here, why don't we all just ride Picard's ass? Example 3. Knowing your shit. The last of the many things that the writers do to butcher this great character is quite distasteful. Now, after Picard loses his cool over the whole Starfleet is no longer sticking to its ideals rant, he has the brilliant idea of going down to see Admiral Clancy to ask for a ship and a crew. So Packard just strolls in and up to the clerk. Then Guy here doesn't recognize one of the greatest and most notable captains of his generation. So Picard gives him this look of disgust. I mean, I don't blame him. I don't know who this guy is either. But in all seriousness, this guy should have really known who Picard was. Anyway, he gives Grandpa a little name tag and sends him to the Admiral. So you can all have context for Picard's full discussion with the Admiral. It will be linked in the description. So Packard then makes his case on why he needs the aforementioned requirements for his journey to go and save this android chick. Then, get this, she basically tells him to get fucked. They then go into the whole what happened in the past argument, so we the audience can get the context for what's currently at stake. She then states, as we know, that Romulus was destroyed by the supernova that Ambassador Spock tried to fix. She goes on to say that the Romulans had asked for help from the Federation, but the Federation didn't help because certain key Federation factions had threatened to leave altogether.
14 species within the Federation said cut the Romulans loose or we'll pull out. It was a choice between allowing the Federation to implode or letting the Romulans go.
She also mentions that the Federation didn't have enough starships to help with the evacuation. Okay, so, where to begin? So ignoring the fact that it takes millions of years for a star to go supernova, and that the Romulans should have known to evacuate the planet years before this event even took place, the Romulans still don't have enough ships to take care of the population of one planet? The planet that is considered the heart of your empire? Keyword empire? Look at all of these planets. I do not have the resources to leave. Look at all these ships you just get out of nowhere in the finale. And that's just one fleet. Wait a minute. How long did you have to evacuate? How long have you known this was going to happen? If they had millions of years to leave and they constantly procrastinated, then do they truly deserve to live? Ha! Wait, I lost focus there. Remember, we were talking about Picard. All jokes aside, Picard goes on to say the last and final line that officially ruined everything. The one line that caused worldwide rage. The line that caused everyone to finally go completely nihilist and give up all hope in humanity. The line that made me want to murder any and everyone that came in sight. With one final nail in the coffin, the writers officially commit what is most commonly referred to as character assassination.
The Federation does not get to decide if a species lives or dies.
I'm sorry, you walking albino raisin motherfucker. Could you say that again?
The Federation does not get to decide if a species lives or dies.
First off, Packard, yes, the Federation can. They are not part of the Federation. This is not the Federation letting them die. It's much more complicated than that. The Romulans chose to not evacuate in a certain amount of time. Remember, it takes millions of years for a sun to go supernova. The signs of this event would start popping up soon enough to give the Romulans the chance to leave. Millions of years soon enough. So by the time the supernova starts taking place, they then decide to come to the Federation and say, "We need to leave, give us your ships." The Federation is under no obligation to say yes. They simply agree to help at first because of their ideals. Unfortunately, not every faction in the Federation see eye to eye, and who could blame them? For all they know, during the rescue, the Romulans could pull some type of scheme that would endanger all of those ships and everyone on board. The Romulans have proven themselves untrustworthy time and time again.
And you used me to lure the Enterprise into the neutral zone.
Someone has betrayed us.
Yes, you did.
Spock, we've been friends for 80 years.
It is the only logical conclusion.
The United Federation of Planets is one of the largest and most peaceful pieces of government to ever grace their galaxy, and letting it fall apart at the expense of current opposition is utterly imbecilic. This could possibly start civil war, causing thousands if not hundreds of thousands of lives to be lost over the course of an unforeseeable amount of time. Does it suck that these star systems don't want to help? Yes, but as I said, who could blame them? Oh, and Packard, don't forget that causing the Federation to split for an enemy could likely cause more lives to be needlessly lost in the long run. Quite possibly more lives than the supernova would take. I'm sure you've heard of the saying,
"The needs of the many outweigh
the needs of the few."
Or the one.
It was in Wrath of Khan. Didn't you watch that movie, Packard? It's the most well-known out of the original Star Trek movies. More well-known than any of your shitty movies, that's for sure. Yeah, I said it. These movies really aren't that good either. I take that back. The third one was actually alright, but by that point, who fucking cared? Anyway, back on topic. I emphasize this moment the most because it shows how much our character has fallen from grace. How they have utterly misunderstood this role and unintentionally morphed it into another character, making him completely unrecognizable. Also, this scene gives a lot more examples as to how Packard acts throughout the whole show. You have Packard's candy ass go bumbling about begging for people's help. Like, seriously? This is a man born to lead and took such extremes to cement this into people's heads. He rarely, if hardly ever, socialized with the crew, excluding a few, and only interacted with them in mostly professional environments. Picard was also a diplomat. This was one of the reasons why he was placed on the Federation flagship. Now, when you're a diplomat, one would assume that you are more than capable of negotiating and expressing to people your needs and desires while giving good reasons. This man fails to properly convince this woman on how important this mission could be to Starfleet. You don't just barge in and say, "Hey, this colleague that I worked with has one of his offspring in danger. Give me a ship and crew. Oh, and sorry for making you all look bad on TV a day ago." You try to persuade from a different angle. For example, say that this is an android like Data, but possibly more advanced. If you help me get her to safety, maybe we look into the tech that makes her what she is. I know synthetics are banned, but she is her own life, and far more convincing, and a more humanistic android than Data ever was. This could be a rare opportunity for the Federation, science and humanity, and artificial intelligence to take the next leap. This could also help restore androids back in good light with the public. Possibilities could be endless. But nah, give me a ship, bitch. That should work. Also regarding the whole Romulus being incinerated from a supernova fiasco, just have Picard publicly step down. But give him the role of secret agent. This is so he does not represent Starfleet officially, so all of these species don't get mad. Also have him lead a campaign to save as much Romulans as he can with his cute little Dunkirk brigade.
The pyramids were a symbol of colossal vanity. If you want to look for a historical analogy, Dunkirk.
Then, when he gets back and saves the day, you reinstate him as an admiral. This may not be the best way to do it, but it's definitely not bad. Okay, bonus time. If everything I've said to you still doesn't somehow convince you that this is not really Picard, then let me show you this. The context for the scene is that Packard and his crew that he rounds up need to get that sweet, sweet robot foof. But in order to do that, Packard needs to get this dude named Jordan Peterson. Sorry, he needs to get this guy named Bruce Maddox. If you guys don't remember, Bruce Maddox was the guy who wanted to explore Data's insides in the episode Measure of a Man in TNG. Now the whole episode of Picard relies completely on convenience with Annika just coming out of nowhere in the episode just so she can have exactly what the bad guy needs to get Bruce Maddox out. They are all discussing the plan on how they will infiltrate and use their disguises for the mission. Then, all of a sudden, when Packard should be taking the lead and telling everyone what they should be doing, because that's his character, he decides to go the opposite route and just, well, let me show you.
That I looked appropriately sinister, appropriately sinister, appropriately sinister, appropriately sinister.
What the fuck was that?
Inexcusable.
Lives are at stake here, man. If people don't do their jobs right, then it's possible that most of you will die. I am so sorry they did this to you, Picard. You deserve much better than this. Yes, Picard did make jokes and was goofy at times, but he didn't normally do this when people were in danger. The one time he was acting goofy when lives were in danger was when he was mentally compromised due to not being properly protected from the other time continuum. This was interesting to make. This Picard show, while being hilarious at times, was also very insightful. Yet another version of what we've been seeing in pop culture lately. With Luke, it hit close to home. With Picard, it was more like smashing a brilliantly carved statue. This degradation of something that was quite great will not go unnoticed. I took it upon myself to make this vid for you guys, so you could see this from my perspective. But not to my surprise, a lot of you out there feel the same way I do. Star Trek Picard viewership has been declining rapidly over the past few episodes, and you can see why. I mean, hell, just go to the IMDb page. Just lists and lists of people being so upset with this show. Now yes, I know there's a season 2 coming, but that was already announced before the season even hit streaming services. If you are a longtime fan and you still enjoy STP, then go right ahead. Don't let me get in the way of you enjoying something, but ask yourself, does this really look like Picard to you? This little wimp who has to constantly beg and ask for every little thing? This man who fails to take action when properly needed to? This man who constantly makes little mistakes and hangs in the back as others do all the work for him? This guy who makes jokes at the worst moments when planning an operation? This sounds like the individual who was the captain for 3 starships for the Federation, 2 of them being the flagship? The man who lived 2 lifetimes? The man who lectured gods on morality? The man who prevented galaxy-wide conflicts on a regular basis? I don't.